Hello, hello, beautiful, sensitive souls, and welcome to Surviving to Thriving. And here we always address how to go from struggle and just barely surviving, as it feels like anyway, in a world that's just too big, too fast, too busy, too loud. It just seems like too much. And being in a place, getting to a place that is calm and where we can actually thrive as highly sensing folks. And I'm your host, high sensory coach Tammy Goen, and glad to have you here as always. And it's really my hope that every single highly sensing woman will stop hiding and feeling wrong, feeling like she needs to be completely different, playing small, and just really coming to honor that amazing trait of sensitivity, what that means, and embrace that so that she can be a strong yet gentle force in the world. And this week, I'm going to be kind of continuing on the idea of health and high sensitivity. And today, bringing in the idea of paying attention to our inner wisdom as it relates to our health. And last week, I shared a summary and some thoughts with Elaine Aaron with her article on high sensitivity and health, and really highlighting the importance of decreasing our stress responses. And that still remains a real key to enhancing our immune systems and staying healthy. And I did review some ideas, just kind of some reminders on how to manage stress and things that can be helpful for us in creating a daily practice. And hopefully some of those were resonant with you, and you've been able to create and commit to a really regular daily practice of some kind of self-care to really manage that overwhelm piece so that you can be healthier. So the other piece of that, of being healthy, and especially as a highly sensing person, but of course for everyone, is to really listen to and honor our inner guidance, our inner wisdom, our intuition, whatever word you want to use. So that's why I decided to have that focus for today, so that we can go a little bit deeper on how we can not only just take care of ourselves, I should say not only take care of ourselves, but also pay attention to our inner landscape, what we already know, and not necessarily either comparing ourselves with others, but also not relying on others to make everything the way it needs to be or to give us the answers. So, as I like to do, starting with some quotes, never apologize for trusting your intuition. Your brain can play tricks, your heart can be blind, but your gut is always right. I like that. I have no idea who said it. It was just down where I found it as anonymous. So thank you for whoever said that. And there's been many versions of that over the years, of course. And it's just a good reminder that we can think things in a certain way that aren't necessarily really true, at least for us. So we really do need to go in to figure out what works for us. So, and another one would be think for yourself, trust your own intuition. Another's mind isn't walking your journey, you are. And again, just to reiterate what I had just said, and this is from Scotty Waves. I don't know who that is, but thank you, Scotty. And again, just that idea that we can't compare our journey with anyone else, because we can fall short. We can go the opposite too and think, oh, I've got this all figured out, and so-and-so doesn't. There's always something in the middle there, but we just really need to listen to what it is that we really do know when we take the time to listen. And there's often quite a gap between Western medicine practices and alternative viewpoints. That's usually the term that's used if it's not Western. The former tends to be seeing humans as machines that we just break down. We have all these individual parts that we need to focus on. And that's where the issue lies, just in that one little part. And that we can often remedy whatever is going on just with pharmaceuticals or surgery or a combination of those things, but often not really taking in the whole. So those alternative or holistic practitioners tend to look through that holistic lens. They look at that idea that everything is connected, and our minds and our emotions are just as important as our physical bodies. And yes, one thing here can be connected with one thing here, even though standard Western medicine would not necessarily see it that way. They say, oh, we're going to focus on that and fix that. We're going to focus on that and fix that. But a holistic view says those might be related, and it might be related to something that we haven't even looked at yet. So I I tend toward that journey of health, looking at an alternative viewpoint and a holistic viewpoint. I do that, within my coaching, not just picking one specific thing, but how do all of these things factor in? And I appreciate that same idea, in the healthcare system. So I'm not downplaying everything about Western medicine. I mean, it certainly has a place, like if you're going to be setting bones or fixing ruptured organs or scanning for some kind of diagnosis so that you know what's going on. I mean, all of those things are of great benefit, of course. And for many conditions and illnesses, it can be a little short-sighted. Again, just picking on one thing and not noticing all these other things that could be affecting it. So, and I don't want to be like a major downer, but I do want to just share this thing that there are various sources that have shown, and you do have to really search for this, but that over 100,000 people die every year from prescription drugs used and prescribed appropriately or correctly, not misused, but as diagnosed. And that's as much as 5 times more than those who die from overdose of pain meds or even heroin. So it's a pretty alarming figure, really. And again, if you want to search for this yourself, you're going to have to really spend some time, because if you just search something like death by pharmaceuticals or something, you just get all of the stuff about overdose, and that's what they want you to see. So you have to dig deep to really get that information. And I've heard that from multiple people, which is why I sought that out. And it did take a while to find that information. But it's important to have that as a backdrop to remember we don't have to go there, and it sometimes is not the best thing. So sometimes things are not good for us in particular. Sometimes they're just not good for anybody, but especially for us, they might be okay for someone else. But a one size fits all mentality in the healthcare system is just not optimum. It can be dangerous and even fatal. So often alternative practitioners who will take into account the whole person and considering all the different causes and solutions outside of the typical box can help us refine our perception and see new and potential resolution to whatever our challenges are. And they look at how everything in our lives, which includes stress and our stress responses and our mindset, all the things that we're telling ourselves or what our expectations are, that's huge when we talk about things like the placebo effect or the nocebo effect, those things that where we get something in our mind that it's true and we make that true. So an alternative practitioner takes all of that into consideration and realizes that all of those things can be affecting our current situation. And if you look at things like Louise Hay, she used to talk about things of, like symbolism within the body. So if you have a certain health issue, say a shoulder or your gut or something, and you go and you can look her up for her book, where she actually itemized everything that is symbolic to a particular issue or thought that can really affect our bodies through our mindset, or just picking up on, even sometimes it's things from our parents that we learned, as we just assumed that that's just the way life is, and that's our programming. All of those things factor into what we're dealing with, why we're dealing with it, and what we need to resolve it. So ultimately, it's important to remember that we do have our own answers within us. Our bodies, our subconscious mind knows what we need, what's best for us. It's not always easy to access that information and to really, really listen. So back to our intuition, needing to learn to ask ourselves what is good for us, and then be able to listen and honor that, to accept it and not say, oh yeah, but this is what someone is saying over here. So I'm constantly working on this to try to improve my ability to hear what my own inner guidance is saying and let go of the talk of anything that's not connected with me, or anything that's not working, or just anything that's interference, and just really listening. What is my inner guidance saying? I do believe it has all the answers. I just have to get my logical mind and my mindset, out of the way. I have to get that clear so I can really listen. And whenever I am able to do that, it's right. I mean, like those quotes, if you listen to your gut, your intuition, your inner knowing, it's always right. We can second guess it so easily and say, yeah, but but this doctor, has all this medical, not only experience, but education, and, should know what they're talking about. So I can't be right, but we really, really do know. So just spending a lot of time trying to really connect is really important. And it does take practice. It's like going to the gym and building a muscle. We have to practice that until we get to a point. And some people are at this place where they can just immediately go in and say, oh, I have a question. Oh, okay, now I know the answer. And of course, there are medical intuitives that will help you do that. That's not my my realm, but I am constantly working on trying to make that more effective for myself. And there are certain, stories that always stick with me about that idea of getting locked into something that somebody else says just because they're supposed to know. And it used to drive me just insane when I'd hear about a condition or issue that my grandparents, I was really close to them, were dealing with. And, we'd talk about it. And then I'd find out that they're taking a certain medication, which maybe I'd heard some things about. Or, I'd ask, oh, what about PT? Or what about this? And, different solutions. And their responses were always, well, I'm just doing what the doctor says, whatever that is, period. And there was like no discussion. And I would just like, but there's so many different options and so many different ways. And if nothing else, just a second opinion, because people do that quite often, right? Well, yeah, that's a doctor telling me, but I'm going to check with this other doctor. But they just got into that habit of, this is my doctor, they're educated, they know it, I'm just going to follow that. That never really sat with me. And they didn't usually want to hear, oh, well, I just learned about this. Oh, okay. And but they weren't taking it in because they just trusted their doctor. And, honest, forthcoming doctors will actually acknowledge that they and medicine in general don't know everything. I was just working with one of my clients this morning who recently, we discovered that we have the same naturopathic doctor. She's brand new to me. My client has been working with her for a while, and commented that she was dealing with something that the doctor was helping with a bunch of different ideas. And she got to a point where she actually said, you know what? I'm not sure where to go from here. I'm going to refer you and send you to a specialist. And I think that's very not only valuable, but honorable as a practitioner to be able to say, yeah, I do have some limitations. And then she saw the practitioner, the specialist, and they even said, we don't really have all the information about this, and this is about all I can tell you. We're limited. That's all we know. So, I mean, it is true. We don't know everything, and doctors don't know everything. So acknowledging that and then stepping into that piece of saying, okay, does this feel right? This is what they think or what they know so far. Does it work for me? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And when we're considering like a medication, even a supplement or a potential surgery or procedure, just because someone recommends it or says, well, this is what we do. When this happens, this is what you do. It doesn't mean that that's going to be your answer. It doesn't mean that that's going to be right for you. And so that's when it's good to check in. And especially if you have an immediate response, that's when you always know you're listening to your intuition, when you have an immediate response and you haven't even thought about it. Someone says, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on. I recommend this. And you have this immediate visceral response of like, oh, no, I don't want to go there. And then your brain kicks in and goes, oh, wait, I need to listen to the doctor. He knows what he's talking about, or she's done this before, or whatever. But that is always your indication that your intuition is talking, when you immediately have that response, and it's important to listen to that. So checking in purposefully, though, saying, okay, let me think about this. I'll get back to you. And then go in and say, get yourself calm, centered, and say, how does this feel? Does it seem like the right thing? Not do I think it is, or is this what everybody else says, or what the research is? You can Google forever. But to say, does this feel right? Does it resonate as a potential? We don't always, we're not always able to, we always have the answer. We're not always able to hear that. And so sometimes we'll still defer to somebody else or say, oh, I need more information. And then we do some research. But if we sit with that enough, we do have that tendency to be able to feel if something's not quite right. It just feels like, no, and I can't tell you why. And other people will argue, no, this is what you need to do. Why would you not do it? And you say, well, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. And that's really, really important. It's a really strong feeling, that gut feeling, that response. And there are many, many ways to heal ourselves, which a lot of that just means getting out of our way and being open to what all the different, possibilities are. And working with a holistic practitioner of some kind, an alternative practitioner, that there's usually more room for that. Like, hey, I don't like this idea. What about something this direction? Or, what else is possible if this doesn't work for me, or if I don't want to go that direction, and see what some of the other stuff is. And maybe one of those things would pop up. You're going, oh, hey, wait a second. As soon as you said that, that felt pretty good. Tell me more about that one. And really honoring that instead of just being quiet and saying, oh, this is what the doctor says. So, for example, I have many, many experiences of this where sometimes at the beginning I listen to my intuition, and sometimes it's a later thing where I go, yeah, I kind of knew that and I didn't listen. But a couple years ago, I did have a shoulder injury. I had some initial pain and then it got worse. And because I have a massage therapy background, I knew all the different things to test. And so I was pretty convinced that I didn't have a tear, but I've experienced in the past with my other shoulder that my body compensates really well. So I knew, there's still a possibility, but I went to PT, did some various things, finally ended up getting an MRI and finding out I did in fact have a tear, 50% tear. And the consult that I had, after the MRI, they said, okay, so here's the deal. I didn't really get even enough specifics. I could have asked a lot more about the type of tear, because I kind of made an assumption on, oh, it must be like this one for this one, but it wasn't at all. But the initial response is, well, we would recommend surgery. And yes, sometimes when it's 50%, some people will opt to not, and sometimes they can heal. But, we can get this going pretty soon. And so I said, okay, well, I'll consider that. I'll see when I can get it scheduled, let's look at that. But then I went home and said, do I want to do this? I've already had surgery on one side. Do I want to do that again? Does this feel like what I need to do? Yeah, it's a torn tendon. Tendons don't heal by themselves very well. Do I just need to assume that, oh, I need surgery to fix that? But I sat with it for a while and I really started feeling like, I don't want to do that. Let me see what else can happen. And then of course, as it turns out, my body took over as soon as I said, no, I don't want to do surgery. And then I ended up with frozen shoulder. And I'm pretty sure that was my body's way of saying, okay, got it. We're not going with surgery, but you need to make sure that you don't re-injure it or keep injuring it or doing too much, and really let it heal. So it froze up. So I couldn't use it. And so I did a bunch of, different alternative options for helping before I even realized it was actually frozen. But going through that whole healing process, I opted for alternative options for the most part, and PT and all of those things. And it took a lot of work and a lot of my time for doing stretches and strengthening and all of that. But fortunately, here I am, it's 2 years since I had the first injury, but only a year and a half since I realized, what was going on, and the frozen shoulder set in. And I'm about 90% of full range and use in terms of the freezing part. But the really exciting thing is that everything that I was experiencing as a result of the tear is completely fine now. So, I'm not saying that would have happened for everyone. I kind of look back and say, oh, with my first surgery, what would have happened if I had just opted to stay with what I was doing? Because I wasn't really having that much, limitation. But I listened to the doctor, said, oh, who actually, my doctor actually said, well, you can fix this now or someday not use your arm. I mean, that's how intense it was and how sure he was that that's what I really, really needed. But when I found out more information later, I realized, I'm not so sure that that's the case, because I was actually doing, pretty well considering. So anyway, great for me. It's worked out really well. And I'm not saying that would have been that way for every single person. But if I had checked in and said, oh, yeah, this feels like what I really need to do is let's just schedule the surgery and get it done, and then I'll be okay, then I would go with that. But since I didn't, I said, no, I don't think I want to go there. And so I honored that, and it did work out, pretty well, really well. So another thing that can kind of come up, which is a little bit crazy sometimes, but I've had this happen many, many times. So you might have had this as well. And that is that if you experience something that is bothersome or whatever, and you go to your doctor and you say, okay, I had this response or this reaction or this didn't work and I had this adverse result, and that person says, oh well, that can't happen. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. I said, oh, when I take this happens. Oh well, that can't happen. It's not that, it's something else. Okay, well, it's my experience. Nothing else in my life is different except that. And when I stop doing that, then it's fine. So there's no like, oh well, that's interesting, let's see why that is, which is more likely with an alternative practitioner. Not always, but again, I know what my body's experiencing. I might not know why, and it might take a while to get there, but rather than second guessing and saying, oh well, I thought it was this because that's the only thing I've done differently, but the doctor is saying that that can't be it. So am I crazy? Am I making this up? No, that's just me, and someone is not ready to listen to that. So whatever we're experiencing, even if we don't know why, we just have to listen to that. We can follow recommendations, check in, say, is this working? Does this feel okay? Or do you find resistance to doing it, not because it's not enjoyable for exercises or something like that, but if you have this nagging, like, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this, I don't think this is right, I don't see how this is going to work, then there's going to be a problem, because you can either, one, create the nocebo effect, which is, you do something that's supposed to make you better and it doesn't work because you're telling yourself that. So either being aware of what the self-talk is, or just recognizing that that is just not for you, and then being able to either ask for a second opinion or say, I'm going to go somewhere else and see what a different viewpoint says, or do some research on your own, but something like that we can use, that is likely to be more effective than just rely on somebody's recommendations, or, well, this is what I've seen before, so it has to be that way for you. So I would really just pay attention to that, and shy away from any of those, put you in a box, everybody's the same, this is the way it is and it can't be any different. That's for me, that sets me off immediately, and I don't even want to spend any more time with that type of practitioner. But that's kind of typical in our culture these days. Like, you go to a doctor and you just, what they say is what it's supposed to be. And we hear lots and lots of stories of times when people were wrong and they got the wrong advice and they suffered for it. So if they had checked in with themselves and knew ahead of time, they might not have gotten that idea. But if they had said, where, oh yeah, this didn't feel right the whole time, but I was listening to the doctor and so I did it anyway. So that happens pretty often. So just that reminder of choosing to check in with ourselves first, not going by just someone's judgment or recommendation or assumptions, but really checking in with us. So we are in charge of us, and we need to take charge of our healthcare. So kind of on a soapbox today, but I think it's really important to realize that, especially as being a highly sensing person, we can be affected by things a lot more than average, which is probably why I'd hear that, oh, well, that can't happen. Oh, that doesn't happen with this. And then I just want to like jump up and down and go, okay, look at me. This is what I'm experiencing. So I have learned to honor that and not second guess that, regardless of what anybody says. Like, nope, that is my experience. That is what is happening. I don't know why. Maybe you can help me figure out why, but that is what I'm experiencing. That is what's happening. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Check in with yourself on any decision that you want to make, but especially something that has to do with your health. If what you're doing with your own doctor is just not working, be strong and able to say, you know what, I'm gonna go a different direction, or I'm gonna consider something else, and be able to accept when they're not okay with that. They might try to pressure you or judge you in some way and say something that's not very nice. Just say, I'm sorry, but I need to honor myself. So that's my main goal this time, for presenting all of this, and not so that you feel like it's worthless or hopeless, or there's too much negative in there, but just to inspire you to go inside, ask your questions, honor whatever that is, even if it's not what's expected or the norm. So, and as always, I mean, if you're ever wanting some guidance on how to listen to yourself, how to take care of yourself, how to minimize stress, and really just maximize your sensitivity so that it benefits you rather than limits you, please do reach out. I'd love to talk with you about how we can do that. And as always, thank you for being here, and I will look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a really amazing day.